Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Thanks for joining us here on Northern Life. We usually love to begin our shows on very happy notes, but of course, you know, this past weekend, major news, and I came across a story that I thought was too important. We just had to share it. The state of Minnesota still grieving over the shooting death of State Representative Melissa Hortman, as well as her husband.
Yeah, absolutely terrible. Hortman volunteered in her free time, and her love of dogs and animals is revealed in the time that she spent volunteering at a nonprofit. Adriana D'Alba spoke to people who knew Hortman for her caring and giving nature.
To understand who the Hortmans were, you only need to see the gift they gave a struggling veteran.
I was really at a bad place.
As Eric Elsner fought through the darkest parts of PTSD,
Got a call and they said, "We think we have a match for you."
that match was Minnie, a service dog who gave him new life.
She got me going again.
But before Minnie stood by his side, she spent the first 2.5 years of her life in the care of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman, her husband, and their daughter. Together, they trained this dog to heal.
It just makes me think of how special their family was, you know.
That's why the news that Melissa Hortman and her husband were shot and killed
It doesn't make sense.
hits so unthinkably hard.
I'm so sad, you know. Everybody is.
The Hortmans spent countless hours volunteering with Helping Paws, a nonprofit, now reflecting not on Hortman's politics, but on the quiet legacy she built behind closed doors.
She would walk into the building, we were in Hopkins at the time, and that public persona just went away, and she was totally focused on training Gilbert.
Gilbert, the golden retriever she poured her heart into. He was deemed too friendly to serve as a working dog, so the Hortmans kept him. Gilbert was also killed in the shooting.
He was with his people to the very end.
People who gave Eric his loyal companion
I don't know how you can match any better, honestly.
and a second chance at life.
I will. I'll always think of them.
Oh, just such a terrible, terrible thing to have happened. And, you know, you like to think that maybe Gilbert had to go because the Hortmans needed him, you know, at the time. And it just adds a whole extra layer of sadness to what happened over the weekend, and just unfathomable. So sad, but amazing to learn about Representative Hortman's work with that nonprofit. So cool to see, you know, there's so much time that she spent dedicated to her politics that she was able to do that as well, to give back to others in need is very special.
Yeah. And also heard from Senator Klobuchar. I think she was speaking with the folks on CNN, talking about how she didn't even know that Representative Hortman was doing that.
Yeah.
And so the fact that, you know, as tragic as that news is, to see the joy of her work that brought, the work that she brought joy to others, pretty incredible.
Yeah, just quietly doing it on the side.
Right.
It's amazing. Well, here's what we have for you coming up on today's show. Alexis Bass is here with us in studio. She's going to help us continue our Grandma's Marathon coverage as we talk about the stories she's done in the past, as well as the special report she has airing tomorrow night right here on Northern News Now, related to a very special person who's going to be running the races this weekend. So looking forward to that.
Looking forward to the weekend. Hey, what those runners and competitors will be doing this weekend, incredibly impressive, don't get me wrong. The same can be said for this man in Australia. Delighted onlookers at a skate park watched in awe as a gentleman performed impressive tricks on a mobility scooter.
Oh my.
The man named Gavin performed donuts around the park and also popped a wheelie on that mobility scooter. The person who posted this video to TikTok ended up saying, "Whose Gramps is this?"
Come get him. Come pick him up.
I didn't know you could have that much speed in a motorized vehicle like that. Yeah, wow, crazy.
Was that part of an activity, or is that just on his own little thing?
I think some
ne'er-do-wells?
I think maybe he realized he had a talent and he had to show it off to the rest of the world.
I guess.
Hopefully they got a lot of good battery on that mobility scooter. And hopefully I don't know how much, I guess I don't know if you have to change out tires on a mobility scooter if you're taking it that quickly.
I guess, yeah. Geez, a pit crew. You need a pit crew with that thing.
No kidding. Kudos to him. There is another way to party without alcohol. Put down the pint and pick up a pour over. That's because people are welcoming folks into sober clubbing. This hopping daytime club in Singapore is part of a growing trend in alcohol-free events. Gen Zers are increasingly increasingly seeking out these sober social spaces, and not only for the health benefits, but it's also for the no pressure vibes.
Ooh.
They say, yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there, or a lot of restaurants and such, making putting more priority toward mocktail menus.
Right.
I've
Yes.
noticed that out and about, and different NA drinks you'll see at breweries these days. So very cool.
Yeah.
And they taste pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
The ones that I've had before, yeah,
Super
taste very,
good.
very good.
I'm not even 30 yet. I'll be 30 later this year. But when we were at the wedding in North Carolina, I think I was doing pretty well. You know, I wasn't drinking a whole lot, but you know, staying up till like 1:30 or 2. Being in an Airbnb where you forget to close the shade so it's super bright in the morning, and then also having terrible pillows was not a great combo. So
Horrible
We learned
combination.
earlier that Ryan had a very hard time, and this just adds to it in North Carolina.
Yeah, but then you're like, you know, I am getting a lot older. It's like I need a good pillow. I need more sleep, and I'm just getting old.
I'm
Mix
finding-
in a water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
I'm finding I can't eat late anymore. Like 9 or 10
Yes,
o'clock.
that was
like,
another issue.
I gotta eat before 6 or 7 o'clock, or else
Yeah.
it's not gonna be a good night's sleep for me.
No,
Yeah.
not fun. Let's take you over to Wisconsin, where for 8 decades now, one Wisconsin Dells attraction has rolled through both land and water, carrying generations of families along for the ride. This summer, the iconic Dells Army Ducks are celebrating 80 years with a combination of adventure and nostalgia. The tour started way back in 1946 with a creative idea to turn military vehicles into a unique sightseeing experience. Over the decades, they become a beloved tradition for visitors all over Wisconsin Dells.
That's really cool. I've never ridden in one of those.
I saw those
fun.
all the time as a kid, and I was like, I don't know if I need to do that. But now as an adult, I'm like, yeah, get me
Yeah.
on that thing. I want to ride
I remember
that thing.
distinctly riding with
Yeah.
my grandpa on one of those and thinking like, oh, this isn't about to go in the water, is it? And then it does, and the water surges over, and it was so
is.
cool.
That's really
Oh,
neat.
Give me
yes.
that and the Kalahari.
There we go.
Coming up, Alexis Bass reels into the studio for us. We're talking Grandma's Marathon coverage next on Northern Light.
Welcome back, folks. It's going to be a busy Grandma's Marathon weekend, and it takes a lot to put the race together, but it also takes a ton of work to cover it here.
That's why we have our amazing sports director, Alexis Bass, who is leading our team on all things Grandma's Marathon this weekend, joining us in studio today. Alexis, how are we feeling? What's the game plan?
It is
What are
the-
the X's and O's before we get out there?
So many of the X's O's. The calm before the storm. Yeah. Oh, that was, what was that, 3 years ago? 2
A couple of years ago, we got
yeah.
Kevin Moore.
Wow,
Paul
you guys
Brown.
really dug out of the archives there.
Oh, heck yeah.
I use what I can find.
Yeah, so I mean, this week is just preparing a couple storylines from our local area. I know I was actually just at a church in Superior yesterday. We'll be talking about them in the next couple days, highlighting what they're doing. And the beauty about Grandma's Marathon, it's this umbrella event where everybody gets to raise money under different mini umbrellas. And so they're raising money for a organization called 30 for Freedom, which raises money to bring awareness and save people through sex trafficking. So it's an amazing organization, and that's only one of many and several. So have a couple of those things this week, and then of course Friday be live ahead of the 5K, because that race gets
Yeah.
off and going at 1 p.m.
The
this
time
year.
change,
Time
yeah.
change.
Yep.
And then, Ryan, I might crash your show at 4 p.m.
Come on down
That sounds
at
good.
4.
Hunter,
for
maybe
sure be there.
yours at whichever hour you
Noon, 4,
decide.
yeah.
All
yep,
the above.
We got
you know?
all of it. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just to kind of talk more about like what goes into this sort of thing. There's a lot of like mini, I'd call them Super Bowls when it comes to sports coverage here in the Northland. Would you say this is the biggest Super Bowl of the year when it comes to coverage?
Yeah. However, and I was just telling you guys this a little bit. It feels like because we have such a tight ship that we do things in such a great assembly line that Saturday is really most fun day ever. And there's no atmosphere like being down there in Canal Park. Everybody's down there, the fans. I mean, people, representation from many different countries, many different states, cities, everywhere. So there's a lot that goes on and a lot that goes into it, but it really is so much fun.
And how do you cover all the ground? I mean, obviously the folks finish at the finish line, but you know, you gotta get video of the fans, you gotta get video of the runners when they come in. How do you coordinate all that?
So a lot of times we'll always have somebody that goes to the start line up into Harbors. Shout out.
Hey, let's
Agnes
go.
Hunter.
Alma mater.
And they'll get some B-roll there, and then we will have somebody at the finish line gathering B-roll there as well and making sure times are correct. And then I am always over doing web and social and making sure everybody's alerted with the correct winners, from our wheelchairs to our half marathon, men's and women's finishers, and same thing with our full marathon coverage on both the men's and women's side. So we've got it down to a science, and that's why it goes by so fast. And then, of course, we have some of our reporters on the news side of things that will capture other storylines going on throughout the day. So if you have anything that happens during the day, we would love to highlight it on Northern News Now socials, on all platforms, because that really is when we find out some of the storylines. It's not just ahead of the race.
Yeah. You yourself, relatively sporty woman. You played volleyball and all that fun stuff.
Relatively sporty.
Relatively sporty woman. You're in
Hunter's
sports,
words.
of course. Yes,
Hunter's
exactly.
words do not reflect the words of the entire.
Hunter, we need to change the lingo and go back to the dictionary.
Yes, I'll go back to the thesaurus. I'll pull it back out. But have you yourself ever done a marathon or anything like that?
I have not, but it's funny you bring it up because I just recently, over the last 7 months, got back into locking into running, and where I had have a dozen miles a week goal for myself, and then by the end of the month, I've had run a little over 50 miles. And I've never wanted to be the person that just crosses a, check off a list, but I want to really be so interested and have such a strong desire to actually run a race. So I have decided, this was happening the other day when I was on one of my long runs, I'm like, Alexis, next year it's the 50th anniversary of Grandma's.
Whoa.
No matter where you are in life, you have to come back and run the half. So I told myself, and I will say, runner's high is a real thing. After mile 3 or 4, I'm like, all right, we could even do a marathon. Just kidding, that will happen. But
you build the blocks up.
Yes. I will say running is a little bit like a therapy. You're able to kind of just lock into that. And if someone needs you, they don't, because you really can't run to them,
Right.
So I do think it is a delicacy, and Grandma's Marathon is like no other. I feel like it would be rude for me to open up my marathoning and it not happen at Grandma's.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I think in the past years, you've obviously had the chance to talk to those competitors after they finish those races. What's maybe like a go-to question you ask, or do you usually ask like what they're going to eat after the fact?
It's funny you bring that up. I do. I remember how many times, even when we were live at the 5K, I always say, okay, how are we celebrating? Because there's live music right behind us. And then, of course, we are just gifted with so many amazing little restaurants and places to feast or grab a beer, grab ice cream, celebrate in that way. So I always want to know how they're celebrating, because it's important. Whether it's the 5K, it's the half, it's the marathon, there are so many wins that we capture throughout the day.
Anybody ever tell you they're going to Disney World after the race win?
I haven't gotten that. But Hunter, maybe, just maybe, I will ask somebody.
Do it this year.
Hunter McCullough would love to know if you're going to Disney.
The Hunter McCullough question at the end of the race. Let's do it.
We're pinning it.
You got to ask any of the relatively sporty people who are out there doing the races. I'm sure all the people out there are very sporty people that are finishing those races. Well, Alexis Bass, our wonderful Northern News Now sports director, joining us for the day today. Alexis, thank you for being here.
Good luck this weekend.
Thanks for
good luck
having
this
me.
weekend.
I'll make sure to stay relatively sporty.
Northern Legacy on Northern Life is brought to you by Dahlberg Law.
Welcome back, folks. This program is called Northern Life, and one of the big parts of life, of course, is preparing ourselves and our loved ones for what is to come afterwards. And that's why we're excited to welcome back, once again, attorney Chris Dahlberg. Chris, thank you again for hanging out with us.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so we talked last time more about wills versus trusts and why is it so important, talking about governing from the grave. But can you give us a little synopsis again about why it is so important to have all these things prepared?
Yeah, well, it's if you don't prepare, there's going to be default, and it can be by what's the Minnesota statute or Wisconsin statute, and that just means the government decides how it should go, and it might not be according to what your plans are. So this way, there might be certain children you want to give more to, there might be a nephew you want to give more to, so you get to plan. You've worked hard all your life. You get to control on your death where things go.
We talked about a little bit about the will last time, but touch more about what exactly a trust is and when that's useful.
Well, I joke about saying the will is basic. It's kind of default. Here you go, kids. Whereas a trust is governing from the grave.
Yep.
You set out a roadmap. Why do we do trusts? There's probably 4 different situations, I'd say, Hunter. The first one is a blended family. Clients come to me, and this is their second or third marriage. They're bringing in, they both have their sets of kids. You might have a case of a disabled child or a child that has alcohol or drug problems. You might have a family business and you just don't want a fire sale saying, here you go, kids, it's yours. You want to think it out. Or you have a legacy property, and that could be a cabin, and it doesn't matter if it's a beautiful cabin on Vermilion that's worth $2 million, or if it's a shack that's ready to fall over. It's sentimental, or it could be a home on Lake Superior. And so those are really the 4 reasons why you do that.
Sure, and we're going to touch on each one of these separately here. I imagine blended family comes up pretty frequently.
It does.
Yes.
And obviously, we all know that it's the reality of life. There's divorces, and I don't know what the statistics are there. Is it 50% of marriages get divorced? And then one of the things I find older clients are getting remarried. They might have lost a spouse. And so I'll have clients that are 70, 75, 80 years old getting married a second time. And 30, 40 years ago, Hunter, that would have been considered foolish.
Yeah.
You just say, why are you doing that? Because life expectancy, you might be married at 75, you only have 2 years left. Now we know you could get married at 75. You could have 20 good years.
Seriously.
But there's a problem it brings with you. Husband and wife come into the marriage, they both come in with substantial amounts of money, or maybe one spouse comes in with a lot of money, the other doesn't. And they've worked all their life, second marriage, and now what's going to happen when one of those spouses passes? And that's where it gets, as I say, legal terms, squirrely.
That's a solid legal term
Yes.
right there. That's what you learn right in law school. Talk a little bit more. I've heard about the phrase, you can't write out a spouse. What does that mean?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you can write out your children. So if you say, you're out of the will, that's a good time to announce it at Thanksgiving. Just say, that's it, enough.
Yep.
But you can't write out a spouse in Minnesota. You have a spousal elective share, it's called. So if all of a sudden a spouse finds out after a death that, he gave everything to the kids, you can claw it back, and there's ways to do it. But you can also agree when you're married and they're both spouses are living, you can agree to some type of a joint estate planning. You can do a waiver of spousal elective share to say, you know what, we agree this is fair, you should get your kids this much or that. Or else we're doing a trust that works out to make sure the surviving spouse is taken care of, but on the death, it goes out, and we can do something that's like irrevocable and some protections.
Okay, well,
but there's complications that you can imagine.
I can definitely imagine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again. Welcome back, folks. Coming up tomorrow here on Northern Life, more Grandma's fun to enjoy. Big old weekend coming up here on the Northland. We're going to share some of the best marathon stories from recent memory, including inspirational parents, Olympic superstars, and the nicest race day volunteers. So kind of going back in the archives, I believe, for a couple stories.
Yeah, I love just the amount of inspirational stories that come out of Grandma's Marathon. And there's just so many people who are doing it for one reason or another that just motivate you to want to sign up, the next time sign-up's open, which will be in October. So if you're watching it this week and you're like, I got to do this, get October on your calendar.
I know this is pre-race, but do you think you're going to do it again next year?
I usually do it most years. Yeah, it's just a tradition at this point. Yeah, I love the race vibe. So yeah, I think I'll do it again next year. Maybe the 5K.
There we go. Peel it back a little.
Before we go here today, I'm sure no one's wondered what this might look like, but let's take a gander at the world's largest crab cake.
Oh yeah,
never wondered
like
what that looks like before, but it does look large. Yeah. Fans at the Richmond Flying Squirrels game got the unique chance to take a bite out of it. That massive 300-pound crab cake was shared with all the baseball fans at the game. No word on exactly how long it took to cook that delicacy, but very interesting nonetheless.
Get a thermometer in it before you eat it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. We love you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Find some time to throw a line, or just head outside to unwind. That's the life in the great North Woods. Hike or bike, whatever you like. Get out in the day, enjoy the night. Yeah, we got the life in the great North Woods. Yeah, we got the life in the great North Woods. Yeah, this is Northern Life.